whiteness becomes important. Good morning. I was wrong about Gab. It's a beautiful morning. I'm wearing a linen shirt. I'm smoking a blue billiard. That's how you do a summer morning. And I was wrong about Gab. You may have noticed that I put a slew of videos up on YouTube recently that weren't reviews. Remember I said I was just going to post reviews on YouTube. So let me tell you why I'm saying I was wrong about Gab. And oh look, this is just perfect. As I make this video, I pass a house with an American flag and a house. Oh, it'll become unblocked soon. With a rainbow Black Power flag. O tempora, o mores. Gab. You know, the reason, this is it in the nutshelliest nutshell I can get it into. The reason I jumped on board Gab was because of Andrew Torba and his vision. And the reason I'm now saying I was wrong is because of Andrew Torba and his vision. I want Christians to make things. I'm a fan of a Christian ghetto. Doesn't bother me. We've been identityless for too long. Just being diluted into the world. We need to strengthen ourselves. We need to consolidate our forces. We need to make stuff that's ours, since we gave all of our stuff away. Andrew Torba talks quite a bit about the Lordship of Jesus Christ and how he is submitted to Jesus Christ. And I pray and believe that he truly has. So this may begin to change as he grows wiser, grows in his walk. And yes, I am sitting in judgment, as I expect others to do with this video. I am choosing to interpret Torba's vision and rhetoric as immature Christianity. Because he not only talks about the Lordship of Jesus, he talks a whole lot, a whole lot about race. Now, when Gab started popping, there was a spike in the rhetoric about it being a white supremacist sort of place. You know, I checked it out a bit, whatever. You know, over a couple of weeks, I saw maybe a couple of comments, but I thought it really was mostly this place where people wouldn't be censored. So it didn't bother me. We can't even define what racism is anymore. And the people who cry racism most often are the racists in our society. But Andrew Torba, you know, he's not, strictly speaking, a white supremacist. He's a kinist, an apartheidist. And because he's the founder, because he cast the vision, because he's asking Christians to get on board with him, it's not the same thing as some random person or a random group posting something and not being censored. This is the leader, the founder. I took a break from Gab a couple times over the last few months, but I kept just telling myself to be patient. I have this new phone. I installed Gab. Like, you know what? I still need to give this thing a shot. So I installed it today. Went to upload a video today to Gab. And the first thing I saw was an Andrew Torba post that was just brutally kinist and apartheidist. And what I mean by kinist is that races ought to be exclusive to each other, that tribes ought to be exclusive to each other. And that's simply not Christian. Well, of course, people are going to get up in the comments and argue with me about what racism is, talk to me about tribes and nations as they're defined in Scripture. Maybe we can have that conversation at some other point. I'm aware that tribes are real, that nations have more to do with language and culture than with borders. I dislike the nation state, but I also know that the church is the one true nation. So I'm going to let you read the Torba quote that finally just convinced me. I'm going to be done, at least for the foreseeable future. I was mistaken to buy into this. So here it is.
Ah, yes, you'd be afraid of the white European American guy in your plane, said no one ever. This country was founded by white Europeans. Stating that fact isn't hateful. Wanting to maintain a white European majority in a country founded by white Europeans isn't a bad thing. Just as wanting to maintain a Jewish majority in a country founded by Jews for Jews isn't a bad thing. Just as wanting to maintain a black majority in a country founded by blacks isn't a bad thing. Just as wanting to preserve a Japanese majority for Japan isn't a bad thing. It's only when white Europeans want to preserve majority status in their own countries that it's bad. We're breaking that spell daily and more people are waking up.
Now this is in response to some guy's tweet. And Torba shared this. That talked about Andrew Torba not being a founding stock. And calling him out for hypocrisy, I suppose. It's stupid of this guy that Torba's responding to. But given that Torba responded, really emphasizing his Europeanness, not addressing this guy's asinine objection, but instead emphasizing his Europeanness. No one's scared of the European guy. Torba, I mean, the moment I saw that name, I thought, oh, that's a Slavic name. And so for this video, when I looked it up, it is indeed a Slavic name. I don't know anything about Andrew Torba's background. Besides that, I haven't looked up who his parents and grandparents or great-grandparents are. What they certainly are not is a founding race, right? And here's the problem. Whiteness becomes important. Whiteness is important to Andrew Torba. But whiteness is not a real thing. Being of Slavic descent, that's real. But being white is not real. We are trying to make it real. We've been trying to make it real. It has nothing to do with the founding of this country. It has, are you going to trace genealogies to tell me that an Englishman is closer to a Slav than to a Moroccan? Like, it's gonna get stupid. It is stupid, and yet it's so important to these guys. Interestingly, the way I found this was that Torba retweeted a black guy who is also an apartheidist, which it's not the first time in history that's occurred. And this guy's comment is remarkable. This guy cites percentages of how the US was in the 50s and endorses that as the American ideal. Like, he has a recipe. He has a racial recipe for an ideal United States. And it's not cultural, it's not historical, it's purely racial. That means we could keep up the black percentage with Nigerians and Senegalese, right? I mean, it's so random and wild and disheartening. Now, here's why it's a big deal to me. He's a Christian, making a Christian thing. The Torba is explicitly Christian and theological in his actions. And in the same way, you can deal with hypocrisy from the world, mistreatment from the world in a certain way, but when it comes from Christians, you sometimes have to take more drastic action, right? So Christians are doing evil in your church, teaching a wrong doctrine, leading people a sinful way, then you have to do things, right? You have to reform, you have to leave, you have to, whatever it is, right? So Gab is by a Christian, and he's a racist. And yeah, we don't even know what a racist is anymore, because everyone's a racist now. But he's an old-fashioned one that we would recognize in the 1990s. And I'm okay with still calling him a Christian. But this is false and harmful, and I'm not going to participate in it. Doesn't mean I'll never do Gab again. But you know, one of my pastors was a part of my thought process in hopping on Gab when he said, he mentioned that, the unsavory elements of Gab that Christians had to associate with unsavories, hang out in catacombs and hang out with unclean people, because the savory parts of society despised them, rejected them, eschewed them. And so there was some justice to pagan accusations that we hung out with bandits. So that was definitely part of my thinking. You know what? Yeah, we'll just go. We can hang out. If it's a little unsavory, that's fine, because it's where Christians are going to go. We already know we're not welcome in the Google empire, in the Facebook empire. But then when we get on a ship and it's not full of unsavory characters and brigands and people trying to avoid the regular roads and the customs officers, but instead is actually a pirate ship captained by a pirate, I don't want to be a part of it. All right, y'all. Flame up the comments section. Let's talk.
Aí sim é um homem de verdade, não é esses troços do grupo não, essas carcaças velhas, uó, fim de carreira.
Cadê você, profeta, autarquia? Hein? Pedrada no inferno, fala comigo aí, matador de demônio. Hein?